Close your eyes for a moment. Picture a summer evening in 1958. You're 10 years old. Your dad's car is rolling slowly through the neighborhood. No destination, no plan, the open window, and the warm air, and your mother humming along to something on the radio. You pull up to the house, and there's old Mr. Hendricks next door, sitting on his porch waving. Your mom calls something over to his wife. Your sister runs inside to call her friend. On the only telephone in the house, the one attached to the kitchen wall by a cord. Tonight, the whole family will watch one television channel together, and when the broadcast ends, the test pattern will come on, and everyone will know it's time for bed. That world didn't disappear slowly. It disappeared in the time it takes a generation to grow up and grow old. Today, we're going to walk back through it. 20 activities, 20 rituals, 20 pieces of American daily life that are completely, totally, and permanently gone. Let's go back. Pumping your own gas, full service stations, before the 1970s. Pulling into a gas station meant pulling into a completely different world. A uniformed attendant would rush out, fill your tank, check your oil, clean your windshield. All while you sat comfortably behind the wheel. Wasn't just fuel. It was a ritual, a conversation, a moment of community. By the late 1980s, full-service stations had nearly vanished, replaced by cold, self-service pumps that told you nothing and said even less. Getting ice delivered to your home. Before refrigerators became common in the 1940s and 50s, the iceman was one of the most important people in your neighborhood. He'd haul enormous frozen blocks up your porch steps, slide them into your icebox, and collect a few coins. Sometimes staying for a cup of coffee and a chat. Children would follow the ice wagon down the street, picking up stray chips to cool themselves on hot summer days. The moment the refrigerator arrived in American homes, icemen simply disappeared. A trade that had lasted centuries, gone within a single generation. Sunday drives going nowhere in particular. In the 1950s and 60s, families across America would pile into the family car on Sunday. Afternoons with no destination, no map, schedule. Dad would drive. Mom would watch the scenery. Kids would argue over the back seat. And everyone would feel, somehow, completely at peace. The Sunday drive was never about going somewhere. It was about being together in motion, watching the country scroll past. Today, with gas prices, screen distractions, and packed schedules, no one drives just to drive anymore. That quiet ritual has all but disappeared. Party lines, shared telephone service. For most of rural America, through the mid-20th century, picking up the telephone meant you might not be alone on the line. Party lines connected multiple households to a single telephone circuit. You'd pick up and hear your neighbor already talking, or worse, listen in on their conversation. Gossip spread faster on party lines than any newspaper. Arguments erupted. Romances were eavesdropped upon. Whole neighborhoods were bound together, awkwardly, intimately. Private telephone lines eventually replaced them, but something was lost too. That strange, uncomfortable closeness with the people around you. Milkman deliveries at dawn, before the sun came up, over the American suburb. The milkman had already been down your street, glass bottles clinking softly, left on the porch before a single light came on. You'd leave out your empties at night and find fresh, cold milk in the morning like a small daily miracle. In the 1950s, over 30% of American milk was delivered this way. By 1975, that number had collapsed to under 7%. Supermarkets and refrigerators made the milkman unnecessary. But no supermarket ever left anything on your porch before dawn. Sitting on the front porch, before air conditioning changed American homes forever, porch wasn't decoration. It was where life happened. On summer evenings, families would drag out rocking chairs and wooden swings, wave to neighbors, watch children play in the street, and let the night air cool them down. The porch was America's living room, open to the world. Conversations flowed from yard to yard. Community built itself out of those long, lazy evenings. When air conditioning arrived in the 1960s and 70s, Americans went inside and closed the door, and never really came back out, memorizing phone numbers. Every American child of the 20th century had a small, impressive mental library. Mother's work number, grandma's number, the number for the family doctor. You dialed from memory. You called from a payphone on a street corner with no contact list, no screen, just digits you had stored somewhere in your mind. If you forgot a number, you looked it up in the phone book. That thick, yellow, paged annual that every home kept beside the telephone. Smartphones ended all of that. Most people today cannot recite more than 2 or 3 phone numbers from memory. A skill that took decades to build vanished in under a decade. Saturday, double feature at the movie theater for a dime, sometimes less. A child in 1940s America could walk into a movie palace and spend the entire day inside. 2 full films, a newsreel, a cartoon, and maybe a serial episode, all for the price of a single ticket. The theater was babysitter, entertainment center, and escape hatch rolled into one. Kids would show up at 10 in the morning and stumble out blinking into the late afternoon, full of popcorn and stories. Multiplexes and home video replaced the double feature. The long, sprawling day at the movies, that particular childhood freedom, is completely gone. Lie-away plans at the department store before credit cards became universal. Working, while class Americans had a patient, dignified way of buying what they couldn't yet afford. You'd walk into a store, pick out an item, a bicycle, a coat, a set of dishes, leave a small deposit, and the store would hold it for you while you paid it off week by week. No interest. No debt spiral. Just honesty. You'd earn what you wanted before you got it. Lie-away taught an entire generation that things worth having were worth waiting for. That lesson, like layaway itself, has largely faded from American life. Writing and mailing personal letters. There was a time when every American household had stationery, proper paper, envelopes, maybe a fountain pen, and letter. Writing was a serious act. A letter to a distant relative, a friend who had moved away, a soldier overseas, took days to compose, days to arrive, and was read and carefully saved. You could feel someone's mood in their handwriting. You could see where they'd paused, crossed something out, started over. Email arrived in the 1990s and killed personal letter writing almost overnight. We type faster now, but no one saves our emails in a shoebox under the bed. Home remedies and the family medicine chest. Before the age of urgent care clinics and Google searches, American mothers were the first line of defense against illness, and their weapons were kept in a simple wooden cabinet. For castor oil, mustard plasters, Vicks VapoRub, cod liver oil. Treatments passed down through generations, applied with confident hands. The smell of those remedies, sharp, medicinal, comforting, is one of the most powerful nostalgic triggers for anyone who grew up in mid-20th century America. Those remedies weren't always scientifically perfect. They came with something no prescription can provide: a parent who stayed by your side until the fever broke, a ride, hitchhiking across America. Through the 1950s and 60s, hitchhiking was not dangerous or strange. It was simply how many Americans moved across the country without a car. College students, veterans, seasonal workers, wanderers. They'd stand by the roadside with a thumb out and wait, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours. The kindness of strangers was assumed. You'd ride in the cab of a farmer's pickup, sandwiches, hear entire life stories in a 100-mile stretch. Fear, some of it warranted, it media-driven, killed hitchhiking by the 1980s. A generation of easy, generous movement across the American road simply stopped. The annual Sears catalog arrival. There was no Amazon. There was no mall within driving distance for millions of rural Americans. And then, every year, the Sears Roebuck catalog, nearly 600 pages thick, clothing, furniture, tools, toys, farm equipment, even kit houses. If America made it, Sears sold it, right there in your hands. Would spend hours with the toy section in November, circling items with pencil, dreaming in catalog pages. When the Sears catalog was discontinued in 1993, it was the quiet end of an era. A way of wanting things, a way of imagining better lives, that had lasted over a century. Watching the TV test pattern at night. In the early decades of television, the broadcast day ended around midnight, sometimes earlier. The programming would stop, and the screen would fill with a geometric test pattern and a high, steady tone. That was your signal. The day was over. Whatever was left unsaid could wait until morning. There was something almost comforting in it. A society that agreed, collectively, put down its entertainments and rest. 24-hour broadcasting arrived in the 1980s. Pattern vanished. And with it went the idea that the world was permitted to pause. Drugstore soda fountains. Walk into any American drugstore in the 1940s, and you'd find, right alongside the aspirin and shoe polish, a gleaming chrome counter with spinning stools and a soda jerk in a white cap. Phosphates, egg creams, Cokes, banana splits. Made to order, 2 minutes, 25 cents. Teenagers would nurse a single Coke for an hour, talking, laughing, watched over by the benign authority of a man who knew everyone's name. Fountain died slowly through the 1960s and 70s, replaced by fast food chains. The speed increased. The belonging did not survive the transition. Reading the newspaper at breakfast every morning on porches across America, the paper landed with a satisfying thump. Folded, inky, smelling, carrying the world to your doorstep. Adults would divide it up at the breakfast table: news, sports, comics, crossword. Children would read the funnies while mothers checked the sales. There was a rhythm to it. One city, one edition. One shared set of facts that everyone in town would discuss that day. Digital news fragmented all of that, consumed more information than ever. But we no longer share the same morning, the same front page, same world. Backyard victory and home vegetable gardens. During World War II, Americans were encouraged to grow their own food. Victory gardens, they were called. And the habit stuck for a generation. Millions of backyards through the 1940s and 50s had rows of tomatoes, squash, beans, and corn. Families canned their own vegetables. Children weeded under protest. There was a pride in it. The self-sufficiency, the dirt under the fingernails, is lined up on the cellar shelf. Suburbanization, frozen food, and the supermarket convenience of the 1960s ended the home garden for most American families. A generation that knew how to feed itself forgot the barbershop as community hub for men and boys in 20th century America. The barbershop was more than a place to get a haircut. It was the neighborhood newspaper, the town square, the argument chamber. You'd wait your turn in the red vinyl chair, listening to debates about baseball, ticks, and local gossip. Unfiltered, uncensored, real. The barber knew your name, your father's name, how you liked your part. He remembered what you told him 6 weeks ago. Chain salons and style franchises haven't killed the barbershop entirely. But the corner shop, where everyone in the neighborhood sat and argued and laughed together. Mostly memory now. The Drive, in movie theater. At its peak in the late 1950s, there were over 4,000 Drive in theaters operating across the United States. Monuments to car culture and young romance. You'd back the family station wagon in, hook the tinny speaker over the window glass, and watch the movie under open sky while the stars came out above the screen. Teenagers flocked to them. Families brought pajama-clad children who fell asleep in the back seat before the feature ended. It was freedom and togetherness at the same time. Land values, daylight saving time, and the VCR drove most of them under by the 1980s. Today, fewer than 300 remain, monuments to a country that once watched movies under the sky. Knowing your neighbors by name, it seems like the smallest thing. But for most of the 20th century, knowing every family on your block, their names, their children, their troubles, was simply part of living. Neighbors borrowed sugar and returned it. They watched your house when you traveled. They brought food when someone died. They argued across the fence and forgave by sundown. Community was not something you joined or followed online. It was the physical, imperfect, unavoidable web of people who shared your street. Studies show that today, more Americans than ever report not knowing a single neighbor's name. We live closer together than we ever have, and we have never been further apart. These weren't just activities. They weren't just habits or routines. They were the texture of daily life, the small, repeated, ordinary moments that wove people together into something called community. The milkman who knew your name, the neighbor on the porch, the letter you kept for 40 years, the Sunday drive that went nowhere and somehow arrived at the right place. We didn't lose these things because they were bad. We lost them because something faster came along. We were in a hurry. And sometimes, late on a quiet evening, when the screens are dark and the house is still, you can almost hear the bottles clinking on the porch. You can almost feel the car moving down an empty road. You can almost smell the ink on the morning paper. Almost.